welcome back to the channel. And this is the big one, my top 100 books, or my favorite 100 books. And this will be mostly judged on how much I enjoyed the book, but also on its quality as well. Now, people that watch my channel regularly will know that I am quite a big fantasy reader. Do not be surprised. I think there are 45 fantasy books in this top 100. So if you're not big into fantasy, please bear with it, because every other book may be a fantasy book. But that is my most read genre, therefore I'm going to have saturated this top 100 quite a bit with some fantasy. Also, I'm not the most well-read when it comes to classics. There will be plenty of classics in this list, but I have not got to them all. Please see my 50 books to read before I'm 50, and you'll see that I've got basically that whole 50 is like, wow, why haven't you read this yet? And that will become apparent in the video. And thirdly, I will want to revise this video in about 18 months' time, and then maybe 3 years after that, as I am reading more and more these days. Certainly in the last 3 years, I've read more than I ever did before, and that is what is affecting this top 100 directly. So, without further ado, we've got quite a few books to go through, and I'll try to be quite snappy with these. At number 100 is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, kicking us off. Now, I thought about putting A Study in Scarlet on this list, and though I do believe the second half of that book to be better written than anything in the book I've chosen, I'm actually going with The Sign of the Four. I actually believe this is a more well-rounded thriller, a better crime mystery. It has all the elements I really wanted from a Sherlock Holmes novel in it. So The Sign of the Four is my number 100 pick. At number 99 is quite a different story, and that is Gladiator. Apologies for this copy. It is a print-on-demand copy by Philip Wiley. And this is really the typical Superman story. It heavily influenced Superman, and it is a real thrill ride, as you can imagine from a story of that sense. Next up is a classic, one that sci-fi fans will be very much aware of, and that is Flowers for Algernon, a book that kind of touched me as a teenager. I was quite impressed with the connection between the reader and the character in this. Really interesting ideas. Flowers for Algernon is in at number 98. At number 97, we have an Agatha Christie novel. It is Poirot Investigates. This is a short story collection that kind of serves as the third book in the series. It is pretty much a sequel to Murder on the Links, but it is a very well put together short story collection. It is so consistent. There's really no bad short stories in this. I really highly recommend Poirot Investigates. At number 96, it's The Battle of Malden by J.R.R. Tolkien. So this is a historical poem that has been translated by Tolkien here, and also there are elements in this novel that talk about the influence it has had on the world of Middle-earth. And it also includes essays on poem construction and meter. If you have any interest in medieval poetry and storytelling, or in Middle-earth, I think you'll find this quite interesting. At number 95, back with Agatha Christie, this is The Murder on the Links, the book that came directly before Poirot Investigates. It's a really good mystery, and one that kind of I kept up with along the way, so I kind of was figuring out what was going on in time, which I'm assuming is quite rare with Poirot. In fact, I found kind of half the mysteries I've read so far, I've kind of caught up with them, and half of them, my mind's blown. But yeah, really, really interesting. Really liked Poirot in this, and Hastings. They're just excellent in this. Yeah, great mystery, Murder on the Links. At number 94, John Steinbeck of Mice and Men. Some of the characters in this really stood out to me. It is quite a short story, but it is quite affecting as well. Quite an effective story written there by Steinbeck, and certainly worthy of the top 100 spot. At number 93, it's The Great God Pan by Arthur Machen. This is a bit of a Marmite book. There's quite a few booktubers that don't particularly enjoy this one. It is very Victorian, and the tension and the fear really comes from the atmosphere and the quality of the prose from Arthur Machen. So if you're really more into like kind of action horror, this isn't the book for you. If you like a bit of subtlety in your horror, this is really effective. At number 92 is a Western. It's The Quick and the Dead by Louis L'Amour. This is basically a balls to the wall Western. If you like Westerns, action in your Westerns, if you like gunfights, if you like some drama, this is non-stop action. This is, 200 odd pages of just constant Western action. Really, really efficient writing. Louis L'Amour, really impressed with this one, The Quick and the Dead. At number 91 is another classic. It's William Golding, Lord of the Flies. And I think this is a book where I really, really enjoy the themes, and I really enjoy just kind of the first read through, trying to figure out what's going to happen. The drama and tension with the characters as well was really good. But yeah, definitely for the themes, worthy of a spot in the top 100. At number 90 is Robert Louis Stevenson's New Arabian Nights. This is a short story collection of very, very high quality. Though one of the stories didn't work for me as well, there's a few in here that are kind of interconnected, similar to the Arabian Nights, and were fantastic characters and atmosphere in this one. Next, I get to hold up the complete Chronicles of Conan, and the book I have chosen out of here that I've read so far is The Scarlet Citadel, and I really believed that in a short page count, Scarlet Citadel basically gave me everything I wanted from Conan. The writing was fantastic, great atmosphere, loads of action, really, really good short story. And number 88, we have Wayward by Blake Crouch. This is the middle book in the Wayward Pines trilogy, and it is, every book in this series is kind of almost like a different genre, and this one certainly brings the action. It's kind of like an action horror novel, this one. So it's a bit different from that first book, but certainly was a thrill ride. Blake Crouch's writing is very, very intense. And number 87, it's Frozen Hell by John W. Campbell. So this is basically extended version of Who Goes There, and they've added in the first few chapters to kind of give it a bit more of a slow burn. It is still quite short, a little over 100 pages. It's still very effective, and it is obviously the inspiration for John Carpenter's The Thing, and I believe it's still a great read. At number 86, back to Agatha Christie, it's The Mysterious Affair at Styles. Now, I struggled a little bit with the plot points of this book. The mystery is quite dense to try and unpick, but I really, really enjoyed the introduction to Poirot. This is the first Poirot novel, and his relationship with Hastings in this is absolutely delightful. And his wit, the way Poirot is written, I almost instantly fell in love with the character from this novel here. Number 85, it is The Fall of Numenor by J.R.R. Tolkien. So this really, as it says on the cover, depicts the fall of Numenor, a very interesting time in Middle-earth's history and its lore. And also we get to see some early manuscripts of this before they were brought forward by Christopher Tolkien. And those are really interesting. They read more like a kind of a Greek tragedy, which you get really to see kind of where Tolkien was inspired. And yeah, I found it a really, really interesting read. Number 84, it's The Last Town, the final book in the Wayward Pines trilogy by Blake Crouch. Crazy ending. Like the final paragraph of this book is absolute madness. There's so much tension. Yeah, Blake Crouch really puts his characters in peril in this series, and it was a really, really fitting end to a really, really good trilogy. And number 83, it's The Iliad by Homer. Now this translation was a bit dry, a bit of an old translation really, and probably why it didn't rank a little bit higher on my top 100. But I certainly enjoyed reading all the exploits of Hector and Achilles. Fantastic story. I would probably say don't go for the folio edition because it is an older text. Try to look for a newer translation if you can. Number 82, Sharpe's Trafalgar. Quite a recent read for me, but one that I've really, really enjoyed. Sharpe always brings the action, and this time you get the great naval battle of Trafalgar. Yeah, really good stuff. Sharpe, I'm sure, will appear later in the list. And number 81 is The Island of Dr. Moreau, a book of really, really big themes that I think tackled better than Lord of the Flies and earlier. Not a clean read these days. It is quite an old book, over 100 years, and it does kind of stand out as being a little insensitive these days. It's a bit of a harder read, but certainly very, very atmospheric, very well written, and great deep themes in here as well. So all the books so far is what I would have called very good books, all 3.5 stars, around the 3.5 stars plus. And from here on, well, I'm going to talk about all of the great books. So in at number 80 is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, a book of mixed genres. Is it horror? Is it sci-fi? Post-apocalyptic? it's a great book either way. It's the story of a man, you know, right on the edge, and it's just such a deep character, such great peril in this book. Great writing, Richard Matheson. Can't praise enough. I Am Legend. And number 79, it is the first appearance of Robin Hobb, someone much loved on Booktube for the quality of her prose, of her writing, and that's certainly displayed here in Assassin's Quest. Some might say an overly long book, maybe overly sentimental, but certainly deep in here is a very good novel. And number 78, it's The Wheel of Time, The Fires of Heaven, Book 5 in The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. A book, again, a series of great characters. Not all characters are represented here, and it can be a little long-winded in places. It is 900 pages long, but there are some great character moments in here. There's some fantastic prose and some good writing. And number 77 is Casino Royale by Ian Fleming. A short, sharp hit of a spy novel. Not the cleanest read these days. It's a little old and a bit archaic maybe, but certainly the plotting is decent, character work is solid, and yeah, a very solid entry there by Ian Fleming. And number 76, a book that is one of 3 or 4 on this list that are responsible for me being here in front of you today, and that is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And this is a book that I have read a few times over my life, and one that really captured my love and my imagination for reading. What a fantastic novel, a real adventure novel. Yeah, I absolutely love Treasure Island. At number 75 is The Maltese Falcon. Yeah, Maltese Falcon, such a great thriller. Sam Spade is a fantastic character. He's very dry. His sense of humor is very dry. You know, he can be very sarcastic. But the mystery, the actual twists and the plot in this are just so good. Kept me hooked for the whole way. It's a decent length for a mystery as well, between 300 and 400 pages. And yeah, really high quality there by Dashiell Hammett. Really interested in reading some more of his books for sure. At number 74, I'm represented by this giant copy of Lord of the Rings with the Alan Lee illustrations. This is an absolutely massive copy of Lord of the Rings. Representing Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers here at number 74. What can I say about The Two Towers? It has some deep themes, mostly around kind of the effects of industrialization and the pros and cons there. It has obviously battles, it has some great character work, and I think my love for the work is well documented on the channel already. At number 73, it's the first book in the Wheel of Time, Eye of the World. And this is the start of the story by Robert Jordan. It is quite a archetypal fantasy story. It has a lot of tropes in it, but is also very well written. And I would say bear with this book, because I think the final third, not because of a climax or anything like that, but I just think the writing really comes together. The characters really come together in the last few hundred pages. I think Matt and Rand's story, especially when they are separated from the party, is really interesting. I think it is well worth a read, Eye of the World. At number 72 is non-fiction. It is a biography by Jason Kingsley. It's Leading the Rebellion. This is someone that I'm very interested in, just because they've had fingers in the pies of lots of things that I've consumed media-wise over the years, and they've been involved in he and his brother in video games, in comic books, YouTube, and things of that nature. So it's quite an interesting read if you're interested in those things, as I am. And number 71, represented by a tiny pocket edition, it's The Art of War by Sun Tzu. A really interesting read. This will probably be on a lot of people's non-fiction lists. It is a very well-known text, but it's one that I often think about. It comes up in my mind a lot. A lot of people talk about its use in the business world. I've worked in business, and I've also worked on the military side. So it's, yeah, stuff in here, a lot of it is still relevant today. That's why it comes up so often. And it's certainly worthy of a place on the top 100. At number 70, we have Robin Hobb again, Assassin's Apprentice, the first book in the Farseer trilogy and the first book in the realm of the Elderlings. And it's just a great character study of Fitz Chivalry Farseer. We really get to see him from his very young years and kind of grow up to being a young man. And it's, you know, it's a deeply emotional story. Number 69 is Mort, the first deaf book in Terry Pratchett's Discworld, and it's just a fun story. Some very funny characters. We get introduced to Death, who is a recurring character in the universe of Discworld, and yeah, this is just a really good introduction to him. Number 68 is the first, and I believe the best book in the Wayward Pines trilogy, and that is Pines. I feel this is more of a crime thriller than the kind of sci-fi horror of the second two novels. And yeah, this one had me absolutely gripped. It's the longest of the three, I believe, as well. And I think that the slightly slower burn really builds nicely in this. Though with Blake Crouch, you're going to be reading about 1,000,000 miles an hour anyway. But Pines, certainly worthy of its spot. At 67 is Sharpe's Triumph. This book has just a fantastic villain. It's kind of a revenge story. It's a book which has a beautifully kind of choreographed battle in it. You know, with a lot of these Bernard Cornwell books as well, they're quite historically accurate, or at least he will let you know the parts are historically accurate. And it's really thrilling to see these scenes play out in Sharpe's Triumph. At number 66 is Rainbow Six by Tom Clancy. It's a huge, almost 1,000-page military thriller, but it does exactly that. It gives you lots of military, lots of thriller. It's got some good plot twists, a couple of actually really good characters in here. Not all the characters are fully three-dimensional. A couple of them are quite flat. The prose is mostly serviceable, but the military aspects are quite accurate, and the thriller and the plot elements work very, very well. It's just a really, really good novel in that genre. If you're into that genre, I can definitely recommend Rainbow Six by Tom Clancy. And number 65 is Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the middle book in the Mistborn trilogy, and one that is mostly deals with a siege and our character development for 2 or 3 of our main characters. Yeah, it's maybe not as thrilling as the first and final parts in that trilogy, but the character work does have to take place, and I always love a siege, so it's probably a little bit higher than it needs to be in this list. But yeah, number 65 is Well of Ascension. And number 64, representing Hamlet, is William Shakespeare's Illustrated Complete Edition. Yeah, so Hamlet, of the big 3 plays by Hamlet that I will include in this list, as there's a spoiler for you there, Hamlet is the lowest, just because it's one I remember least, so I probably actually read it the least amount of times. But yeah, it's still a great play, and some parts of it still ring true in the mind. So yeah, Hamlet is my number 64. At number 63 is Charles Dickens. Great Expectations. I've got this pocketbook edition because I couldn't find my Penguin edition. But yeah, a book I've read 3 times, must be now. Yeah, really, really enjoy Great Expectations. I really love the characters in this. I really love the sense of drama, atmosphere, suspense, from, you know, seemingly kind of mundane scenes when you compare it to a lot of what I read. But Dickens' writing, I just absolutely love it. I adore it. Yeah, so Charles Dickens, Great Expectations. And number 62 is a bit of a Marmite book on Booktube, and that is King of Thorns, the middle book in the Broken Empire trilogy by Mark Lawrence. And the issue with this for a lot of people is it jumps around a lot time-wise. It's hard to know out of the 3 different timelines whereabouts you are. But everything that happens in the book I absolutely adore. I think the plotting and, you know, the kind of the twists in the characters are just absolutely top-notch. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed King of Thorns. At 61, we're back to the Discworld and back to Death. It's Terry Pratchett's The Hogfather. So this is a festive edition of Death in the Discworld, and it is just very, very obviously funny. The humor is much more in your face in this book for sure, but that kind of works. And, you know, especially with the festive setting, it's a bit of a riot if you read this around Christmas time. At number 60, we have The Children of Húrin by J.R.R. Tolkien, and this is a really interesting novel. It's a real tragedy, this one. It covers a really interesting part in Middle Earth, and it's really good to see kind of Tolkien before the influence of, say, like a Lord Dunsany, as this was written basically concurrently with a lot of Lord Dunsaney's famous works. It is, 100 and some years old, this manuscript. It's been brought forward, obviously, by Christopher Tolkien. And yeah, just great characters in here, a real tragedy, and a fantastic story. Number 59 is Sharpe's Tiger. And this is just an action movie in book form. Fantastic introduction to Sharpe if you're reading it in a chronological order. The first book in the India trilogy as well. Yeah, Sharpe's Tiger, I couldn't recommend this one enough. Loads of action. And number 58, the first book in the Idan trilogy by Philip Chase. And this is a really good halfway house between classic fantasy and modern fantasy. Really well kind of researched, which you'd expect from someone like Philip Chase. Yeah, really interesting spin on fantasy here. At 57, it's The Shadow Rising, book 4 in the Wheel of Time. One book where, again, maybe it could have done with a little bit of editing, but otherwise it's just fantastic. Great set pieces, great characters, great character moments and interactions. Really enjoyable ride. And number 56 is The Gunslinger, the first book in the Dark Tower universe proper. We get introduced to Roland here, a fantastic character. It's a book, I don't really know what genre it is. Is it a thriller? Is it fantasy? Is it horror? It's a bit of everything. It's not the longest book, and it's just breakneck pace all the way. Really, really interesting. Yeah, love The Gunslinger. Number 55, The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, so what can I say about The Silmarillion? It's a book almost of different parts. Is it part history book? Is it part Bible? Is it part great tales? It's a bit of all of it. And certainly the second half of the book hit harder for me than the first half. It does start quite dry, but stay with it because the great tales are really, really worth reading. The prose in this is absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love The Silmarillion, and it is my number 55. Number 54 is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I took this little copy so I didn't have to get the complete Jane Austen down. Pride and Prejudice, it's sharp, it's witty, it really catches you unawares. At certain points in this novel, you might find yourself drifting just to be pulled back by the characters, by the witty dialogue. And it is one that's really stayed with me. It's a book I think about quite a lot. And certainly the characters and character interactions. And number 53 is Blood of Elves. A book that does not get a lot of praise on Booktube necessarily, and I'm not really sure why. I find the writing in this to be excellent. Maybe it's not always as entertaining as reading a short story collection like the first two books, but certainly the first book proper in the Witcher series just has fantastic characters, has great writing, is great humour, and well worth a read. Number 52, the book I think is the best in the India trilogy, and that's Sharpe's Fortress. This is bombastic. It's so much action. It doesn't have one great villain. It has three. It has three great villains in it, and that really brings the best out of Sharpe. It's revenge on a massive scale. It's like Die Hard set in 1800 India. It's well worth reading. Yeah, Sharpe's Fortress. Couldn't recommend this highly enough. And then up against it for what is possibly the best men's adventure novel against Sharpe's Fortress, I have The Prisoner of Zenda. Now, this is obviously a Victorian novel, quite different to the Sharpe books in the way it is written, but no less compelling, no less action-packed. It's thrilling, really riding along with the main character. Things that happen are crazy at times, but you're just along for the ride. And in these men's adventures, it's really nice to just be along for the ride, for the thrill, and certainly The Prisoner of Zenda does not let you down. So from here on out, we're really creeping from what was great books to excellent books. So we're kind of going towards that 4.5 star range now. And at number 50 is The Last Wish. The first book in The Witcher is a short story collection, one of very good humour, great world building, and very decent prose. At number 49, the first appearance of this man, George R.R. Martin, Song of Ice and Fire, the final book so far, A Dance with Dragons. A book that's not liked as much as some of the others in the series, but it's a fantastic book of great quality, great characters, and fantastic plotting. It is a beast. I do understand that it's a very big commitment for a lot of people, but it is very high quality all the same. Number 48, back to The Witcher again. Not much to split the two short story collections in The Witcher, but I think Sword of Destiny is probably my favourite. It is a little bit funnier. The character work is slightly sharper, but other than that, they are very, very similar. At number 47, it is the second book in the Edan trilogy, Prophet of Edan. And this is really just exactly what you want from a modern fantasy book. It kind of delivers it in character, world building, and action, just as you would expect. The plotting is decent as well. I was shocked with the ending of this book. A very well written modern fantasy. At number 46, it's a violent punch of a book. It's The Prince of Thorns. Prince of Thorns really took me by surprise. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. It never lets go. It grabs the reader. It is extremely fast-paced. Lots of action and violence. It is quite a controversial book on Booktube. People think it's grimdark for the sake of it. Just read the whole trilogy. It really isn't. It isn't what it seems. If you pay attention, it is a fantastic book. And number 45, a very recent read for me, and that's Gaijin by James Clavell. The third book in the Asian Sagas, a very big book. I think in paperback this is almost 1,300 pages. It's a great historical fiction novel, though. It is a true sequel to Taipan and a spiritual sequel to Shogun. And if you enjoyed the characters and the actions from those two books, they are represented very well in this novel here. Fantastic writing and characters again by James Clavell. At number 44, a book people are just kind of warming up to now, and that is Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. I devoured this on release day. I thought, I didn't understand why people weren't picking it up, why people weren't interested in it. I understand that it is really a historical retelling and it isn't a mainline book in the series. But the unreliable narrators in this, and there are several of them, are hilarious. And the different kind of way we get to see the events through different people's eyes is just fantastic. You get to make up your own mind, which is just excellent. Things that happen in this book are crazy. They make what happened in A Song of Ice and Fire look very pale in comparison. At number 43, my favourite book in the Farseer trilogy, that's Royal Assassin. I just feel like this was the book I was looking for in that initial trilogy by Robin Hobb. It gave me the character work and the action, the payoff that maybe I was expecting from Assassin's Apprentice. Yeah, Royal Assassin, not a lot of wasted pages in here. It's probably the right length for the story it's trying to tell, and sets up Assassin's Quest really, really well. At number 42, it's The Mad Ship, the first appearance of the live ship traders. I think a superior trilogy to that of the Farseer trilogy. The only thing against this book is, again, it probably didn't need to be 900 pages long, but the character work in this far outstrips anything in the Farseer trilogy. I love the characters in this story. It takes its time to tell a really, really good story. Number 41, Alexander Dumas, and that is The Three Musketeers. Men's Adventure probably doesn't get much better than this. The Three Musketeers is a classic for a reason. The characters are so likable. The setting is so well realised. The kind of intrigue and the plots are really well put together. But it's just so funny as well. I really enjoyed my time with The Three Musketeers. At number 40 is the book that really hooked me in the Wheel of Time, and that is The Great Hunt. I feel like this is such a step up from The Eye of the World. If you ever want to get into reading Wheel of Time, please stick around for the end of book 2. I feel like book 2 really delivers a lot of what was being put forward with Eye of the World, and yeah, a really great book. At number 39, the first appearance of this man, John Gwynne. Valor is effectively just the most action-packed fantasy novel I've ever read. This is just nothing but fights. It's like 700-800 pages of fights. Yeah, really, really thrilling stuff by John Gwynne. At number 38, a reread I did recently because it had been 26 or 27 years since I'd read him. That's Edgar Allan Poe, The Pit and the Pendulum. Now, this is a short story, but of immense quality. The prose is so rich, it's so accessible, and it's such a thrilling read. Only about 8,000 words, but my life, are you on the edge for all 8,000 words? At number 37 it's my introduction to the Sanderlanche, and that is The Hero of Ages. And this book was crazy. It was a crazy ending. Um, it really just built up to the last couple of hundred pages of this trilogy, and it was just an absolute, as they say, an avalanche of action and twists. Yeah, what more can you say, really? It's a much loved trilogy, and this book is particularly picked out for that reason. And number 36 is the best installment I've read so far in the Wheel of Time, and that is The Dragon Reborn. I feel like book 3 of Wheel of Time hits such a sweet spot of action, character work, prose. It just kind of delivers all the things I was hoping for. It actually managed to give a small step up over The Great Hunt, which I thought was an excellent book already. And it hadn't started to feel bloated like maybe books 4 and 5 had. Now, this is just about as good as it gets for Wheel of Time for me so far. The Dragon Reborn. And number 35 is Charles Dickens again, and it's A Christmas Carol. Just Dickens' writing is just so good. It's just so good. I'm just absolutely enthralled every time I read this man's prose. He is very engaging. The characters are always so relatable. Yeah, A Christmas Carol, I absolutely loved it. It's 100 pages. It's a sweet spot. It's a perfect 100 pages, really. Yeah, really, really enjoyed Christmas Carol. At number 34, the book that I consider to be the best in the Mistborn trilogy is The Final Empire. I feel like Sanderson had something really special with this first novel. The setting and the characters, I think he kind of plucked perfectly. I don't think it necessarily delivered on everything that was in this first novel, but I really, really enjoyed the setup for Mistborn trilogy. At number 33, the book that I consider the best in the Broken Empire trilogy, Emperor of Thorns. I feel like both those first two books, even though the first book could have been kind of read almost as a standalone, the second book definitely was all set up. The whole thing was set up, and it was delivered with aplomb in Emperor of Thorns. It is probably the longest book in the trilogy, but again, it reads so quickly. The twists and the emotional resonance are all there. It's just a really good book 3. At number 32, the first appearance of this man, Joe Abercrombie. This is The Blade itself. Now, I absolutely adored The Blade itself, but I didn't feel like all of the characters clicked yet. But the two that did delivered two of my most memorable characters of that year. And certainly, as far as first books go, they don't get too much better than The Blade itself, where Joe Abercrombie is sharp, it's witty, it's very dark, but it's a great thrill ride. And number 31 is A Feast for Crows. This, again, the kind of sister book to A Dance with Dragons. This takes place mostly around the Riverlands, and it just has a couple of characters that people enjoy more than A Dance with Dragons. It's extremely well written again. I don't think there's a big drop off in quality from Storm of Swords to A Feast for Crows. I just feel like Storm of Swords just had better set pieces, really, and that's kind of the differentiator, because this is still an excellent, excellent book. At number 30, a book I consider somewhat of a hidden gem. That's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I actually believe this is better than the two most recent books in the Song of Ice and Fire. I think it's better than Fire and Blood. I think this is a short story collection of real quality. We are writing with two characters that I absolutely adore. But it's really the stories they get into. It feels very much like one of those Witcher short stories, but with that amazing prose of George R.R. Martin. Yeah, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. If you haven't checked it out, it's not a big time investment. It's probably 300 pages or something like that. And yeah, it's just a fantastic ride. And number 29, probably another considered hidden gem. And that's because very few people have got around to it yet. And that is Return to Adan by Philip Chase. This is a book that just absolutely blew my socks off. The quality jump up from books 1 and 2, which were very good books anyway, is very, very high. The themes in this are very, very well realised, and the character work is disarming. Yeah, a fantastic book, and probably this from here on, these books are more considered classics to me than great books. I think we're starting to get into the realm of real classics. And to kick that off, I have Dracula, and this is a Victorian epistolary novel. I think the first half of this novel is one of the best first halves of any novel you'll see in this top 100. I defy anyone not to enjoy the first half of this book. It's just fantastic. Yeah, it turns into a bit of a men's adventure novel for the second half, but I do enjoy that anyway. So yeah, Dracula is in. At number 27, talking about men's adventure, Count of Monte Cristo. This book is huge, well over 400,000 words, well over 1,200 pages. But what a story! What great characters! Didn't have all the action I was expecting, but it didn't make it any less thrilling. The plotting is crazy in this book. Do revenge books get better than this? I don't know. I haven't read one yet. Count of Monte Cristo at number 27. At number 26, the funniest book on this list, Guards by Terry Pratchett. The characters in this are hilarious. Corporal Nobby Nobbs, unbelievable, so funny. Yeah, this is just a riot. It's a very, very funny book. There's a plot, there's some action in there, but most of the time you're just too hard chuckling, to be fair. Yeah, well deserved in its place in the top 30. 25, probably the book that kind of made me start to fall in love with Realm of the Elderlings, and that is Ship of Magic. I was not surprised for the jump up in quality from Assassin's Quest to Ship of Magic. I feel like Norman Hobb has really, by this point, has really found her groove. The characters were better than in the Farseer trilogy, and yeah, the book just came together so nice. It was 880 pages long, but it didn't feel like it. At number 24, I can't believe some of these books aren't higher, is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. Arguably the most effective horror book I've ever read. Certainly had my hair standing on end. So well written. The characters, the town and the characters, they stand out so much. You get a real sense of place. You get a real sense of living a living place here, and it really helps when you know, some characters start to be put in those situations to have that connection early doors. Yeah, Salem's Lot. I can't you know, recommend this one enough. Number 23, I'm going to place Macbeth. Hard to know exactly where to place Shakespeare's plays. They're so different to everything else that's on this list. But I remember really enjoying Macbeth much more than Hamlet. I'm thinking, you know, it's one that kind of sticks in my mind a bit more. It's one of great, crazy madness. I don't know how to explain it really. If you've read it, you know. I'm not the best at dissecting plays, but certainly Macbeth very deserving of its spot at number 23. Edging it out at number 22 is a book that I'm absolutely in love with, and that is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. Probably, along with Treasure Island, the reason that I'm here in front of you today. The Hobbit, a book I've read probably more than any book on this list, and a book that I absolutely adore. At number 21, one of the best book ones that I've ever read, and that was Malice by John Gwynne. Some people say that this has too slow a burn. I did not think so. I thought it was a perfect amount of politicking, character work, and action. Really, really enjoyed book one of The Faith and the Fallen, Malice by John Gwynne. We're in the top 20, deep in classics territory, and at number 20, it's Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is the second book in the First Lord trilogy. It has an excellent siege, best siege that I've read outside of probably Bernard Cornwell. The characters have all come together now. I really enjoyed all the main characters by this point in the trilogy. It's just such a well-written book. It's just, every time you end a chapter, you're like, how is this person going to get out of this? Are they going to get out of it? Will they make book 3? It's just crazy. It's a crazy book. At number 19 is Ruin by John Gwynne, one of the middle books in The Faith and the Fallen. A lot of people's favourite book in the series. I think it's absolutely neck and neck, because I'm going to say number 18 is Wrath, and I really struggle to split these two. They're going to sit right next to each other in my top 20. Wrath delivered a great ending, a satisfying ending to a four-piece series, but it is hard to split it with Ruin because there's so many great battles. Don't expect all of your favourite characters to survive these two books, that's for sure. Yeah, very heart-wrenching stuff here by John Gwynne. At number 17, one of my favourite books of all time, that's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. A book I've read. I've read the 1818 text and the 1831 text. Yeah, I enjoyed both. I couldn't tell you too much of the nuances between them, to be fair. I haven't read them years apart. But yeah, one book that I was very, very happy to have read. I really enjoyed the themes. I really enjoyed the characters. Obviously, they're not the most likable characters for obvious reasons. But yeah, one book I'm happy to have read and have studied. Number 16, what I consider the best book in the trilogy, and that is The Last Argument of Kings, the conclusion to the first full trilogy. It's just a fantastic ending, really. The difference in quality isn't huge between book 2 and 3, but it delivered everything you were expecting from the trilogy. I still can't believe some of the scenes that happened in this. The set pieces are unreal. Yeah, you're just biting your nails for the characters throughout this. It's hard to even think back to the stuff that happened in this book. It just blows your socks off. At number 15, we're back to Shakespeare for Romeo and Juliet. I think this is just a play that's incredible amounts of fun to read, to act, and to watch. I feel like it's just so translatable, and the characters, they still stick out to me even now. Yeah, obviously it's a play that everyone's read, mostly multiple times, but for good reason. It's stood up for so long because I think it is of such high quality. At number 14, a Russian classic, The Brothers Karamazov. What to say about this is really what it says about humanity, what it says about kind of personality types, the way you choose to live your life, the way you treat people you meet, and just how sometimes life can be bewildering and unfair. And it's a hard read in more ways than one, but certainly a worthwhile one. At number 13, the best book I've read so far by Robin Hobb, and that is Ship of Destiny. As far as complete character arcs go, this is the best I've seen so far by Hobb. It's just as high quality as the other books in it by Ship Traders, apart from pacing. It's probably better in this one. The character conclusions are all within this, as are all of the kind of twists and the politicking that you've seen from the first 2 books. A really fitting conclusion to what I think is a fantastic trilogy. At number 12, we are back with James Clavell for Shogun, a book that is going to be on lots of people's lists if they've read it. It is an immense book of about 1,300 pages, but it is one with just such fantastic characters, very engaging prose, unbelievable politicking. If you love Machiavellian style politicking, you can get plenty of that in Shogun. And it's a really good way to look at kind of 1600s Japanese culture through like a Western lens. At number 11, a book I can't believe didn't make my top 10, and that is The Stand by Stephen King. A book that just I think about all the time. I think about the characters and the scenes from this book all of the time. I can't, of all the books, it's the one that is the hardest for me to put my thumb on exactly why it is so good. But I just felt absolutely immersed the entire, for 1,000 pages, I was completely immersed. And really difficult for me to pull myself out of the novel again when it had finished. It's one book that I find can leave a bit of a reading hangover because I just wanted to read more to Stand. This could have been, like 4,000 pages long. I probably could have just kept on reading it. It's just kind of an anomaly in that way. Now, if you want to see my top 10, if you're waiting to see what are the 10 favourite books of mine, you're going to have to click on the next video because I'm releasing it separately because I've been going for ages and I'm absolutely shattered. So catch you in the next video for my top 10 books of all time.